Yes, special thanks to you, Augusta, for your kind introduction and for making this festival possible after all. We are very happy to be here, and so hello to everybody. Nice to see you, nice to be here. And I'm very happy that Miriam and Miriam will join us via live stream, can present you some of our fake translations. Just a few sentences in advance, so you have an idea what our basic concept of this lecture is. Last October, when Augusta first introduced Miriam and me to each other, I was thrilled by the beauty of the Maltese language. And so I suggested to Miriam we could do some fake translations, and she immediately agreed because she was working with fake translations in her creative writing classes too. And so what are fake translations? Most of you may know, I think, but it's quite easy. You take a poem in a language that you don't speak at all, that you don't know at all, and you try to translate it nonetheless. So maybe Miriam can talk to us and tell us what we too experienced when doing so.
Hi. Calleja, shall I come back later?
You'll come later, yes. Zoom is driving me crazy. Sorry for that. Now the screen disappeared.
I couldn't hear Karin, but I think she's waiting for me.
Yeah, maybe we can hear you. Maybe you
Yes.
can just talk without picture now, without seeing you, but if we have your voice, that would be quite nice.
Hello. Sorry, I could not hear Karin. Thank you so much for having me. I'm really happy to be part of Schamrock-Festival this year. Thank you, Augusta, for inviting me. And thank you, Karin, for working with my poetry. It's been a pleasure to work with you over the past few months.
Yeah.
You've been talking about fake translations, and from my end, I think I like to use fake translations because the resonance of certain elements of poetry can come out almost without knowing how and why, especially the elements of poetry that make poetry different to prose. So for example, the rhythm comes out, sound comes out, even in a language you don't understand. And these are heard in a different way, not in the way we usually understand language. Also, and I think this is an important element, and the reason why I like to use it in my writing workshops is that it helps you get out of your own way. So the little you on your shoulder that's telling you you're not good enough, it goes away, and you don't feel like you might let the other poet down. You just get into that flow where you can write poetry better.
Yeah, thank you very much. I enjoyed it very much too. And so first, we will present to you some of these fake translations we have done together, crisscrossing languages, so to speak, between Maltese and English and German. And then Miriam will answer 3 questions about the Maltese language in general and about her writing in Maltese. And after that, we will present to you 3 poems which were seriously translated. So let's start with our fake translation, and Miriam starts with one of her Maltese poems.
So my first poem is called Unriħata Busbis, and this is this is a description of sunset, and in it I concentrate on young love, on the sense of fennel in the air, and on the colors that I'm seeing when the sun is going down. Unriħata Busbis. Unriħata Busbis, u x-xemx nizlet bil-kwiet f'daqqa, għax daqqu 8 u 4 minuti. Eżatt kif qed li hux, qed tara kif kellek raġun, u qed tmellis li n-nokli, għax oġbitek riħithom u għaduli sbieħ illum.
Abends am Busbahnhof. Abends am Busbahnhof schämte ich mich des Quirls, der immer noch in mir steckte, als wäre ich nicht fertig gerührt. Ich lehnte mich zurück, dachte, bestimmt kommt June, schlägt mich zur Nacht in ihr Tuch und sagt, Teig, du bist nur ein Mensch. Da, jetzt kannst du ruhen. And in order that Miriam got an idea of what I was doing in my German fake translations, I always gave her English version of this, and this time it reads like, at night at the bus station. At night at the bus station, I felt ashamed of the beater that was still sticking in me, as if I wasn't whisked enough. I leaned back and thought, I assume June will come to wrap me in her cloth at night, saying, though you're only a human, now you're allowed to rest.
I was very intrigued by this poem, and so I decided to translate it back into Maltese. And I did this because I was intrigued by the theme of bread making that was so trendy during the pandemic, and also by the idea of something unfinished and stuck in us, especially during lockdown. And I found the last phrase particularly powerful. So this is my translation of At Night at the Bus Station. It's called Billejl fil-venda. Billejl fil-venda, nistħi mill-ħabbata li weħlet ġofija. Jisni ma konċ imħalta sew. Waqafta l-moment biex naħseb. Nissoponi li Ġunju daqt jasal biex jattini bil-mant tijaw u jgħidli Aziza ġina, minti xar bnidem, issa strieħ.
Okay, the next poem is a German poem, Überrasch, and in which I tried to line out some of the perceptions I had during the first lockdown in March. Mostly, it was the feeling like a machinery that was stopped abruptly. Überrasch. Das Reich der fremden Wesen, Turmbau, Akkordgehorsam, zerbröselten in der Schwebe. Angedreht und zerschwindelt war mal, jetzt sind wir runter, sagt wer. Die Maschinerie aus Einstrom und Rückstoß stoppt, kein Triebwerk, nur Laub brummt im Himmel. Das Hinlegen dieser Hand, ungetreckt, genau hier, ohne Warenverkehr. Ich stellte mir immer vor, dass wir aus der Reihe träten, doch jetzt tritt die Reihe aus uns.
Always faster. It is the father of all cardinal rules, of utmost and supermost importance that you must listen. I'll guide you to your destination soon, but first your attention. Are you ready? First, weather the storm that is to come, then pause. The lesson will be clear, the creation abundant. Don't worry about the misstep. Learn, perhaps later, but do acquire the knowledge. I shall live once, and from this collection of mistakes, I shall make a story that will be told again and again.
Yeah, the next poem is Daffodils, I think, and we start with Miriam reading her Maltese poem.
Narċis. Riħitek stordietni, fost il-friex ġilda tleq blara. Tat-silma nizlet għasel, gdim ċofti nitbissem, u wint kalm. Imlejt li widnejja bil-mużika li ġelek toħlom, saħħartni. Qalbek farfetti farfar il-ġwienaħ mal-kappell tajni. Narċis. Naqbdek ftit sijat, Ix-xemx tinżel u titla u inti tkun tlaqt. Riħitek saħritni narċis. Nistrih fid-del tal-ħasira għajjena u nitbissem.
Narzissen. Wir brachen nachts auf. Frost lag auf Sanddünen, Plastikplanen. Seit wann trägst du Blumen? Wollte ich von dir wissen. Wind, kalt, kalt. Spätestens seit ich entdeckt habe, wie musikalisch das ist. Meine Herztrommel. Du sahst mich von der Seite an und die Blumen spielten auf, eine kleine Kapelle, Narzissen. Nicht, dass ich das wirklich mochte. Ich schämte mich, schwieg. Der Wind übernahm wieder. Gelb schrieb in unsere Gesichter. Am verzweigten Ende der Blüten der Wegreine klang schon die Sonne. And I feel very honored that Miriam adapted my attempt of an English version of this fake translation to do her own poem and created a wonderful poem.
Daffodils. We set out when it was still dark, frost laying on the awning and corners of leaves. How long have you been wearing flowers? Sometimes I forget to look at you properly, but now I wanted to know. The wind and cold drown my questions, so I continue. I noticed that it's quite a musical matter. My heart a drum. You gaze sideways and the flowers get louder. A small band playing now, Daffodils. There was no way to silence them. I felt ashamed, kept quiet. Let the gust of wind take over. Let pollen stain our ashen faces. At the bottom of the path, where more flowers grew, the sun was rising.
Yeah, and the next one I think is a good example to show how different methods of fake translation lead to different results. First, I only had the written version of this Maltese poem, and so I focused on the lettering and on the structure and so on, and mostly this comes to very funny results. But then I got an audio file from Miriam, and I heard her voice. And suddenly something completely different was transmitted to me, so a very different fake translation was the second version of this. And I begin with the first fake translation, and then you hear Miriam's Maltese poem, and then a second fake translation. Das Kalb fragt nach Mehrwerten. Das Kalb fragt nach Mehrwerten. Ist maximales Sattsein endlich aus der Mode? Du sagst, wir seien längst in der Postkarnivoren-Ära, jenseits von Milch, Bolzen und Halbfetten. Die Zeit ist eine Entfernung, mit ihr entfliehen allmählich auch Stichhallen, lächelt die Kuh.
قلب تفرق الموج. قلب تفرق الموج السجويك مشاد بالموت. imxejt lura l-post fejn iltqajna. ħarist lejk mill-bot. Kabbartek f'demmi. Żammejt id-distanza. Ħallejt ix-xita tinżel fuqi, riħa ta' sajf.
The second version, after hearing Miriam's voice, langsam schmelzender Alp. Langsam schmelzender Alp. Es quietscht, wenn ich meinen Mund schließe. Ich wollte im Plural sein und bin jetzt nur eine. Der verwundete See platzt auf, Wasser verlässt mich. Die Entfernung wird größer. Ein Leichnam schüttelt seine Flügel. Ich gleite ab. Yeah, so these were our fake translations, some of them. I enjoyed this poetic experiment very much, and as to learn a little more about the Maltese language, I'd like to ask Miriam 3 questions. maybe you could tell us something about the Maltese language in general, what makes it so special, what's so special about it?
So, Karin, the Maltese language is made up of medieval Sicilian and Arabic. So it was a dialect called Siculo-Arabic. And the language kept evolving throughout the years, and it's unique. It is spoken in Malta and obviously by the Maltese around the world. I like using it because for a poet, it's just so melodic, and the conjugation of words and the way you can play with it. And I hope you agree with me now that you've heard quite a lot of Maltese poetry, that you can really use rhythm and sound well. And honestly, it's a joy to be able to discover the sounds in Maltese poetry. And we have a lot of great Maltese poets, even contemporary poets that I'm really lucky to know. And we're all working with this beautiful language.
Mm-hmm. So you're bilingual, and when and why do you decide which language you will use in a poem? Is it the motive, the impulse, or also the reception of the poem? Could you tell us something about that?
Yes, I get asked this question quite often because it's interesting to work with language as a bilingual person, and because I'm fluent with both languages, I tend to write in both languages, but I write more in English because I am mindful of how many people can read and understand it. But sometimes some things cannot be explained in English, and especially if there are memories of childhood, perhaps, or if I'm writing about certain people who I know I communicate with in Maltese, then I'm going to write in Maltese. Depends how, when you're going to write, you get an initial phrase or maybe even a word sometimes, and that is going to lead to the rest of the poem. So I listen to the flow of my poetry, and if it starts with a Maltese word, with a Maltese phrase, or with a rhythm that I feel is Maltese, then I will write the poem in Maltese. Otherwise, I will write the poem in English.
Okay, I see. Thank you very much. And the last question, a short one. In which language do you dream?
I had to think about this very well because my instinct was to say I dream in English. But then when I was remembering some dreams, I think I am bilingual also in my dreams. And I've asked quite a few friends about this who are bilingual, and some of them speak even more than 2 languages very well. And everybody dreams in all the languages they know, it seems. And some people dream in languages they don't know. So my answer would be I am bilingual even when I'm asleep.
Okay, I see. So let's have some more poetry. Our last 3 poems are seriously translated poems. And we start with a poem of Miriam in Maltese.
So my poem is called Ninheba. It means I hide. So, well, I'll read it first. Ninheba. Ninheba wara maskra. Għajnejn li xi miljun sen ilu bdew l-istorja ta' bejnietna u ma kinux jafu kif se jkompluha. Is-solitudni storbjuża. Il-ġirien drajthom jitqatlu u jiġru wara xulxin u wara tfal, qishom imġienen. Imma xorta xtaqt li xi darba aħna jkollna dik il-ħeġġa, dik ir-rabja. Il-biża ta' veru qiegħda wara l-bib. Silthom idejk. Aħjar terġa' jekk insejt, tmixxejn, insa żarbun, insa l-imħabba, insa kollox. Aħsilhom li dawn in-nuqqasijiet. L-imxija waslet sawn. Xi darba mmorru dawra sal-belt f'dan il-baħħ. Naraw daqs li kieku m'hawnx ħlief aħna, qisu kulħadd qeb, jien u int biss. Il-marda ma toqtolx. Jgħidu li dik l-ewwel daqqa tweġġa l-aktar, l-ewwel darba li vera tħobb. Kif se nkejlwa l-imħabba? Tgħid veru li jekk tibqa' tħobb, tibqa' taħfer, tibqa' tħaffer, tibqa' tweġġa? L-istatistika. Jekk tweġibni nkun nista' nikkalkula d-distanza li għandek bżonn. This poem that I've written quite recently, I tried to create a parallel between the elements of the pandemic. So it's written in a particular way so that the words outside are describing typical pandemic things, wearing a mask, loneliness, statistics. And inside the brackets, I wrote the stages of a relationship progressing, perhaps even during the pandemic.
Okay, and this is my German translation. Ich versteckt hinterm Mund-Nasenschutz, Augen, die vor geschätzten Jahrmillionen unsere Liebe entstehen sahen und nichts wussten von ihrem möglichen Fortgang. Die Vereinzelung lärmt. Nachbarn springen einander an die Kehle, hetzen sich und die Kinder nah am Wahnsinn und ich denk nur, wären wir einmal so leidenschaftlich gewesen? Angst nimmt Gestalt an, packt dich. Hast du die Hände gewaschen? Wasch sie nochmal, zur Sicherheit. Nichts berühren, Schuhe aus, Liebe aus. Vergiss alles, wasch ab, was dir fehlt. Die Pandemie ist hier. Wir sollten mal in die Hauptstadt dann, wenn sie menschenleer ist. Sie besichtigen, als wäre keiner da, nur wir, als wären alle woanders, du und ich ganz allein. Das Virus tötet dich nicht. The first cut is the deepest, heißt es, wenn du zum ersten Mal liebst. Wie sollen wir Liebe denn messen? Glaubst du, es stimmt, dass du immer weiter entschuldigst, suchst, wehtust, solange du liebst? Statistisch gesehen, falls du mir antwortest, kann ich sicher hochrechnen, wie viel Distanz du jetzt brauchst. So the following one is one of my poems, and it's about the animal that is said to have transmitted the virus, the bat. And I think Miriam, it wasn't so easy for you to do this because I have done a lot of play on words and lettering. For example, I took the German closeness of German words like fliegen and lügen or Fleder and Leder. But I think, Miriam, you made a wonderful job and have created a real great poem. So first I will read my Kleine Abendsegler. Kleine Abendsegler, woher, wenn nicht vom F, nimmt das Leder die Fliehkraft, vom Fleisch sich zu lösen und leicht zu werden? Wann ließ es Leichen zurück? Wo bog es ab aus dem Schleudertraum in die Fliederbäume? Ihr redet von Batterien aus Schwirrkörpern und morbiden Tabellen, wir aber schenken euren versiegelten Flächen ein Echo-Lächeln und jedem, der löge, ein
Lesser Noctule. Where from, if not from the S, do the scales get their prowess? To separate from their mortal form and evanesce? When did they leave a pang of corpses behind? When did the gentle mammal curl for protection and cause a storm? You're talking about crowd control and protestation and spanning statistics. But we grin and bear the shut doors, and with only our eyes a little nod lingers towards the ease in this.
Thank you. And the last one, we will begin with a comment of Miriam about the content of the poem. Then you will hear my German translation, and we will finish with Maltese, because this is a very beautiful language, as I think.
Thank you, Karin. So this poem is a childhood memory, like I was talking about before. When I write about a childhood memory, I tend to write in Maltese. It is a poem about sweet moments watching my parents cook together. And in the poem, I compare the harmony of getting the food ready for the whole family. I compare it to the picture of love.
Okay, so the German version is Kartoffeln, Bohnen, Knoblauch. Der Garten meines Vaters ist keineswegs groß. Doch als ich klein war, entdeckte ich jeden Tag Neues, ging darin selbstvergessen auf Reisen. Die beste Zeit war im April und Mai, wenn die Bohnenstängel sich reckten, höher als meine Schultern, und dann gab es da noch diese andere, schönere Pflanze mit dickerem Stängel. Genau neben den Bohnen wächst sie und ernährt sich von ihnen. Die allerbeste Zeit aber kam nach der Bohnenernte. Vater würde vorm Fernseher sitzen, Hülsen putzen und schneiden. Mutter würde in der Küche Radio hören und Kartoffeln schälen. Dann kamen sie zusammen, warfen Knoblauch in die Pfanne. Dazu sagten sie immer, das riecht wie im 7. Himmel. Und ich würde auf einen Stuhl klettern, um zuzuschauen. So, dachte ich, sieht Liebe aus.
Patata, ful u tewm. Fil-ġnien ta' missieri kont nintilef. Timmaġinawx li kien xi ġnien kbir, imma jiena kont żgħira. Niskopri kuljum xi parti ġdida, xi rokna għall-ken, fejn ma jarani ħadd. U lejna April u Mejju li sbaħ żmien, għax kien jikber il-ful twil itwal minni. U dik il-pjanta l-oħra sabiħa tikber miegħu biex tiqirdu qalulhom. Għax jiena dik il-pjanta b'zokkoħxa kienet toġobni. L-isbaħ meta konna naqtaw il-ful frisk, il-papà kien joqgħod jara t-televiġnu jqaxxar. Il-mamma fil-kċina tisma' r-radju tqaxxar il-patata. Imbagħad kienu jżidu t-tewm mal-ġottaġen. U dejjem l-istess kienu jgħidu, dini, ir-riħa tal-ġenna. U jien nitla fuq is-siġġu biex narahom. Dini, l-istampa tal-imħabba. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Miriam, and thank you, everybody. Have a nice festival and inspiring evening. Thank you very much.